I also want to open up this talk with a short statement, or I guess it's not really a statement, more notes that I wanted to share about how this exhibition really came to life. After the Dobbs decision, HER's board of directors met to discuss what in the world we were going to do. Of course, the threat to the overturn of Roe v. has always been present, and we've had exhibitions over our 50 years to create space and direct conversation about abortion and women's health. In 2018, HERA had a pop-up exhibition at Brown University called Our Voice, Our Choice after the election of Donald Trump. And we discussed many ideas from creating other pop-up exhibitions at HERA, outside of HERA, to throwing away the exhibition calendar completely and starting fresh with artist reactions to the political turmoil. And ultimately, it was brought up that we are in a blue bubble over in a little corner of Southern New England. We are in a state with safe and legal abortion. We have organizations like the Women Project, Women's Health and Education Fund of Rhode Island, just to name a few, and a wonderful Planned Parenthood right in Providence within driving distance and public transportation means to every woman in our state and even beyond our state lines. So what could we really do that would really help those in need? And we were trying to think of a way of how we could use our privilege to help others and to help those that really needed it. What could we do in this platform that we were on? And at first, we could really just figure out or come to the conclusion that we could just be the space that we are, in a space to cry and rage and make art, as quoted in our objects of agency statement. So shortly after we had this discussion, I was making a post on my personal Instagram, and I used the hashtag abortion rights. And upon typing this in, the first hashtag that came up was hashtag abortion is evil. And then it dawned on me that what we needed to do, or the first thing we needed to do, was to change that trending hashtag, however, whatever we could do to do that. And number two was that HERA Gallery is and always will be the sacred space to cry and rage and make art. But our physical space was only reaching so far. And what we needed to do was to make a bridge to our sisters outside of our blue bubble state lines. With social media being the largest media outlet, our best chance to create this bridge, share our voices, counteract the fake news hashtags, and help to share real stories and factual information about abortion and women's healthcare would be across the web and social media. So the virtual exhibition was born. Objects of Agency brings you 52 selections of work from artists across the country selected by HERA Gallery. The complete virtual exhibition is available on heragallery.org/objects of agency. And each week we feature one artist and their work from the exhibition on social media. The mission of the exhibition is to represent the current state. Another image. The current state of women's healthcare in America, challenge anti-abortion campaigns across social media, and provide a platform that allows everyone to safely and boldly express their voices. I hope that this exhibition has inspired viewers and participants to create more work and continue to speak out. I hope that HERA Gallery and Objects of Agency can be a resource for hope, questions, answers, community, empowerment, and most of all, a helping hand in a time of need. I also want to remind everyone that the exhibition is a kind of fundraiser that if any works are sold from the exhibition, the gallery commission will be donated to Planned Parenthood. So now it's time to hear from our artists. I will follow everyone in alphabetical order. I will introduce your name and then turn the floor over to you. Please try not to take over 5 minutes to talk because we have about 15 or so people speaking today. And then at the end of the talk, after everyone gets their turn, I'll open up a Q&A session and we can have a short discussion. So I think that's it. Here we go.
My name is Jenny Blisle and I live in Richmond, California. And I first want to say thank you to HERA Gallery because it's wonderful to have venues that our risk takers, which are really giving us the opportunity to provide a space to do this work and show it. So thank you for everything you do. So this work is called Woman, and it's part of sort of the Saturday night series that I created, and I sort of document the litter that I walk sort of in the Bay Area, and it sort of becomes this self-portrait of humanity. And so this is an image from the Women's March, and I placed it right in a hanger that was discarded. I sort of feel like right now, women, we do not have the same autonomy or rights. And I just saw something with the World Health Report where it said that women won't attain parity with men for another 131 years.
Oh, what? We're going backwards.
Right?
Come on.
I know this is from the World Economic Forum. So 131 years from now. And
that means that even a little girl born today is not going to live in economic or social parity.
Great granddaughter.
Think about that. That's sad.
Exactly. And so when we see this, and today I was like reading the articles, like 1 year from the Dobbs, and on NBC News, it says the share of Black women farther than an hour drive from an abortion facility rose from 15 to 40%. So you're seeing the distance, it's making it difficult for just basic health care for everyone. This is a right for basic health care. So as a multidisciplinary artist, I'm also a social political advocate, and I have my own art organization here in Contra Costa County. And so we do grassroots art actions and grant writing to support this type of work. And so, part of all of us here together is, free speech, creative expression. That can be radical thought, just our existence by the work we do. And what we're doing is equity and equality should not be a radical thought. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet, but I want to thank you again for this opportunity, and I look forward to hearing everybody else's work.
You're muted.
On. I am so sorry. My Zoom is like, I'm on Zoom every day. I don't know what the problem is today. Okay, here we go. Next we have, or thank you, Jenny, so much for sharing that. I'm trying to write your quote down at the same time about equity and equality. And next we have Elizabeth Barrett-Fall. And Elizabeth, you have 2 works, so you can let me know which way to go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Like Jenny, I want to thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and also appreciate the willingness to take risks with work that is so important for people to see, especially in these ridiculous times that we are finding ourselves in. I made these 2 pieces, the one on the left, about a year after the election of Donald Trump. I, at that point, was already kind of starting to panic about the direction that things were headed. And I was in a show that was a themed surrealism. And for me, that was the most surreal thing that I could think of, was that we were actually going to be taking incredible steps backward in women's rights and healthcare for women. I'm a mother of 4 daughters. So the idea of them being restricted and possibly facing, inability to get healthcare that they might need is just so unfathomable that I felt compelled to continue making these works. So the one on the left is called Indivisible, which the way that I printed the word, it is also interchangeable with invisible, because clearly women still are. And that's why I utilize the clear visible woman vintage model in that piece. And the piece on the right, I did in 2022, utilizing vintage medical illustration of a woman, which I then manipulated to be in sort of a saint-like orientation with the various important reproductive parts and aspects of that included. And it's titled Patron Saint of Reproductive Justice. You know, in another aspect of being driven to make this work was based on my own experience as a woman who would have died without late term abortion, which was for a child that I really wanted. And, you know, understanding that there's an incredible, you know, amount of people in this country who really literally believe that women like me should be denied that care, and that my life is worth less than an unborn person. As a mother at the time of 2 children and a young wife and a daughter and a sister and a friend, to know that had such little, that concept has such little meaning to these people who are playing in roles of power with the future of women's lives. And I think that the only way I can deal with that as an artist is to speak out and to make work that brings these things to people's minds when they view it. And that if that's my form of activism, in addition to anything else I can do, I feel compelled to do it. I feel like we have to do this now. As much as I hate that idea, I just feel like we just don't have a choice anymore. We can't be complacent. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to do this work and to be able to get it out there on this kind of a national platform. So I think I'll leave it there. Oh, that's the third piece. Okay, quickly, I'll just give you a rundown on that. So this too has a lot of references to different things. It has references to Handmaid's Tale. The little number on the inside of the cloche is 45, which represents the 45th president, who we all know who that is. These are body parts that are made out of copper electroforming that I have cut into pieces, and they are being scrutinized and imprisoned under this glass cloche. So that pretty much describes that happy piece too. But that's what I got for you. So thanks very much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Next we have Julie Chen with their video, The Choice. Julie, would you like me to play the video first, or would you like?
I think just go ahead and play it, and I can talk over it while it's being played, because I know we're short on time.
Sure.
So when the decision was broadcasted, I thought about, you know, the where the focus is on the decisions being made, and how when people talk pro-life or pro-choice, it's really unusual. It feels unnatural to pit those specific words against each other, when the choice is about a life that is living, right? To be pro-choice is also to be pro-life, because you're choosing a certain path for your life. And that's basically what I had to do when I was a teenager, and I had to make a decision for my own life and decide whether or not, you know, I was going to keep this pregnancy. And I felt like if, you know, we would think about the potential other life that can happen after abortion, that, you know, more people would realize that we are improving lives by offering abortion to women. So if I didn't have that abortion when I was that young, I don't think I would have ever met my husband. I don't think I would ever have the son that I have now. And that photo at the start of the video would not have been possible, right? To have that specific picture of me, my son, and my mother together. So yeah, I felt like, more stories need to come out, personal stories, and I think I'm very excited to hear a lot more stories come out from different women who have had to go through some sort of abortion and have to make that decision, and how that decision can really improve the lives going from that point forward, and that there is still potential for even better life after, instead of just focusing on that one specific gangle of cells at that point, right? So yeah, so that's why I just felt this urge to get my story out there. And I initially made it like some quick square images I posted on Instagram, and then I decided to edit it together as a video. And so I'm thankful for Hera Gallery for selecting it to be shown so that audiences can see it. I am an interdisciplinary artist. I work in a lot of different media, video and digital images is just one, but I felt like this was appropriate. And someone mentioned earlier that, to have the stage to broadcast in this way is, I think is really, really great. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Oops, ahead of ourselves. Next we have Jeanette Hammerstein.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeanette. So this painting, saying the Ed said things, is kind of my mantra, or it's my goal to be my mantra, which means I'm probably not a good invite for a dinner party. But I, in all seriousness, this painting, I created it or painted it shortly after Roe versus Wade. Relevant, I guess, is I'm an emergency physician and I practice in Indiana, which is a rough state right now. We're on the chopping block for sure. And I think the words for this painting maybe came before the painting. And which sometimes happens for me. I don't know if other people have that experience where you're sometimes have a phrase and then things kind of come together. But I was talking with my daughter, who's a teenager, about it. And she was like, but Mom, she's like, why would anyone say what they want to say? And I on one hand, I was glad she said that, but on the other hand, I realized maybe that's not clear. And so from my perspective, often, anything can come into my workspace, into the emergency room, and, they've just met me, a person has just met me, and I expect a lot, right? I need to know how I can help them. And I need to know, despite whatever shame or whatever preconceived worry or whatever worries they have, I have to somehow get through that quickly to get to the heart of the matter, to figure out how to help them. So that's kind of when this Roe versus Wade thing happened, I was kind of panicked. I'm like, this is just another thing, like on top of mental illness and, abuse and poverty and, drug issues and addiction. I'm like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? And I don't always know how we're going to do it, but this painting was a reminder to me that this moment that I painted is so important, and I have to sometimes just take it back to that, like having that pause with patients, opening that door, forcing that door open somehow if I detect it's needed, to try to get that help there and provide the resources, provide the guidance, even if it's going to be some weird stuff, you know, some hoops and balances and car rides and connections, whatever we need to do to make things happen. So this painting was kind of a reminder for me more than anything, is that maybe I can't change the law right now. And maybe I can't do all the things I want to do, but there's still these moments which are not enough necessarily, but they're there. And that reassured me on one level, on one hand. And I'm trying to think what else I think that's kind of what I was getting at, I guess, is just it's never enough, but for me this was a reassurance painting, I guess, on one hand. And then things like this, I mean, shows like this are just like tremendously helpful on so many levels. So thank you so much for including this piece and for hosting this show, and great honor to be part of it.
Thank you, Jeanette. Next we have Elsie Hart.
Hello, everyone. So I am a bit different than a lot of the other people in this show in that I am trans and I do not have the parts necessary for an abortion. But, when the Roe v. Wade decision came out, I knew I had to do something about it. I was delving into political art for the first time at that time, and I was really impacted by the decision, but it took a number of months to be able to figure out what to actually do and what to actually say. So this piece, which I have right here and as well as on the screen, was kind of the culmination of that. And it's also, and it kind of combines the struggles of abortion rights with the struggles of trans rights, which I am so connected to. So the image in general is a pool of blood made from tape, which is kind of my signature material, with that coat hanger rising out of it. And I always imagine the coat hanger rising up as like a child's hand reaching out, which is part of where the title of it came from. And so obviously this has very explicit abortion references, but also I thought of it a lot as just kind of this idea of bodily autonomy and what are the repercussions of the decisions we're making now. Like I mentioned, I'm trans, and the struggle again and the fight against transness is at an all-time high right now, as well as against abortion rights. I just checked, there are currently 558 active anti-trans bills across the US. And this is very much like an interdisciplinary struggle. And so when I made this piece, I wanted it to be explicitly not tied. I wanted the image to be not tied to a specific gender. And I wanted it to be something that applied to both things at once. And also evoke an idea that wasn't being talked about beforehand and wasn't being talked about as much in the culture that I was seeing, where a lot of the focus was, what is the impact on the women getting abortions, which is a worthy conversation to have. But when I was considering what I wanted to say about this whole thing, I decided that the best thing that I could do was come from a different angle and think about the future and what it means for those that come after us, what the decisions we make now mean for the people that come after us. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this exhibition, and hope you like the work.
We do.
We do.
We do, for sure. Thank you so much, Elsie. Next we have Susan Hensel.
Hi there. I don't see my little picture, but can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. I'm Susan Hensel. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and we certainly are a safe haven. Thank goodness. Statewide, we have a Democratic legislature right now. But I remember when abortion became legal. That was when I was in college. And as a woman in her 70s, I recognized what a huge empowerment and change that was, not only for women, but also for our economy, because we were able to, as women, to participate fully in the economy and in the politics of the United States, with pushback, to be sure. And I have seen this issue coming. I have been preaching to young people, young voters for years that no, you got to pay attention to the judges. You have to vote because it's the judges. You're going to lose Roe v. Wade. And they truthfully never believed me. And I see it all as part of an infantilization of women. I do not want a bunch of gray-haired men, and I'm gray-haired, telling me what to do with my body, any more than they want a bunch of gray-haired women telling them what to do with their bodies. The work that I have in this show is work that I did a while back. There was a call from Planned Parenthood in Colorado Springs, which was a location of a mass shooting having to do with abortion. It was at a Planned Parenthood facility there. And I don't know, 3 or 5 people were killed and a bunch more were injured because somebody came in to save the babies. And abortion to me has never been about birth control. It's never been about babies. I'm infertile. I have 1 child. I got lucky, I got 1. But it's never been about babies. It's been about autonomy. It's been about medical care. And these works, which are very different from the rest of my work, are really about how the lack of this as a right, the lack of our rights to our bodies, make it impossible for us to function fully as human beings. And so there's a reference in this one to They Shoot Horses, Don't They?, which is a Depression era thing about dancing until you drop. But I was working on some 3-dimensional forms and they began to take on a vulvar form. And they looked like abortion to me. And the pliers looked like forceps to me. And Bound and Constricted, which was the other one in the show, is about how we are constricted by the legal view of our gender, which is impossible and utterly wrong. And so I continue to be horrified at these things. So when Dobbs went down, I wasn't shocked. I knew it was coming. It had to. And so I will continue doing what I do with what I'm good at, which is artwork and fibers and finding ways to work. I work actually in digital embroidery most of the time in sculptural formats. And I too am grateful to Hera for doing this because there is that chance that we can reach more people because it is online. And I hope that Hera will keep it online in perpetuity so that people can trip across it. So thank you, Hera.
Thank you, Susan.
You bet.
Next, we have Ellen Hotchberg. Oh, Ellen, now you're muted. I'm going to unmute you. Should work.
Oh, no. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yay! Okay, I'm Ellen. I live in Seattle, Washington. Another blue bubble, but happily living in a blue bubble. Just to talk about these 2 pieces, I'm going to talk about the one on the right first because it came first. In 2012, there was a representative, I had to look up his name to make sure I got it right, Todd Akins, who infamously said that when a woman is legitimately raped, can't get pregnant because it shuts down everything down there. This guy was on the science committee of the United States Congress too. But so I curated a show. We had 30 or 40 artworks that were very wonderful. And this was the poster for the show. And I think the inspiration was like, how dare she? Who does she think she is? And what I love about this poster is that the grainy part of this poster is a picture of, oh gosh, I just spaced out. The creator of Planned Parenthood.
Margaret Sanger.
Thank you, Margaret Sanger. And it was taken in about 1912. And the eyes are actually one of my daughters, and they were taken in 2012. So 100 years apart, these two women were still dealing with the same issue of people wanting to take away their right to contraception. The very bottom line comes from Lima Bowie, who won the Nobel Peace Prize in Liberia for helping to end the civil war there. It's time for women to stop being politely angry. And I loved that too, because I think, unfortunately, when we get angry about these issues, and sometimes there's good reason for it, we're labeled hysterical, or we can't control ourselves or whatever, but we tend to be politely angry. And I felt like it was time for us to stop being politely angry and just be angry about it. The piece on the left is in 2014, 2 years later, I curated another show on reproductive freedom. And this was a piece I had done for that show. In 2014, the United States Supreme Court ruled in the Hobby Lobby case, Hobby Lobby versus the United States government. Under the newly created Affordable Care Act, contraception was included, and employers had to cover contraception. The Hobby Lobby company decided they're a religious, the owners are religious, it's a privately held company. They decided they didn't want to have to give their employees certain forms of birth control because it went against their religious convictions. And the United States Supreme Court, because of I had to look this up too, Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1933, sided with Hobby Lobby, saying that a private company has the right to religious beliefs. And I was shocked. And I think after all that had been happening, it just felt like another attack on women's reproduction. Ergo the target. And it's a little black dress, because another part of that is, well, if you're raped, what were you doing? What were you wearing? And one of my favorite parts of this is that the arrows that are going into the target actually came from the actual ruling. I printed out the ruling and made them into arrows. So it was very much a statement on being attacked by our own government. And it felt like, to be honest with you. One last thing I want to just interject is, after 2016, I created a character I call Captain Utero. And Captain Utero is anybody who wants to be Captain Utero can be Captain Utero. It's in the idea of a superhero that protects a woman's right to choose. And I just wanted, so if you could see that, oh, you can't read it. So if you go to Instagram for Captain Utero, CAPTAIN, like Captain, and Utero, UTERO, I created an Instagram page that not only has artwork that I would love to share your artwork on, as a matter of fact. If you DM me, I'd be happy to show it. And it also gives people information on what their rights are when it comes to abortion, how to access abortion products and services. I figured, instead of trying to convince people that you have a right to choose, I wanted to help people understand what their rights were too. So if you get a chance, please go to Instagram and go to Captain Utero, UTERO, and DM me on there and with your artwork. And I would love to share it on there with other people, because I think this is something we need to keep, as many have said before me, in the public eye. So anyway, thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you, Hera Gallery.
Thank you, Ellen. That's great. I can't wait to check out Captain Utero. Next, we have Joanna Hogue. Quite a few pieces. We have 3 pieces to talk about tonight.
Awesome. Thank you. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. My name is Joanna. I'm a Denver-based artist and a designer and a self-described psychology nerd. So I promise that factors into things here. But before I jump into talking about these pieces, I wanted to give you all an idea of just my trajectory and my sort of process and thinking. Since probably college, I've been really into drawing. In fact, my focus in my MFA was drawing and a little bit of printmaking. And so from the time I saw, these beautiful representations that Albert Dürer did or Da Vinci did, I was so interested in sort of the capturing of details and drawing as documentation. And so in grad school, I really kind of discovered actually these anatomical drawings that this, anatomist from the 1500s, Andreas Vesalius, had done. And he was really sort of a pioneer in this frontier of anatomy. And I think there was something that really captured me about, these drawings and these prints, and thinking about exploring the body as a new frontier, and sort of the risk and the bravery required to really probe at that and to bring light to it. Because there was a lot of sort of religious restrictions on, on opening up the body or bodies that had been deceased. And so people who were pioneers in mapping these spaces with drawings really had to kind of push against that. And in fact, Vesalius's first sort of dissection, he had to like sneakily steal a body from the gallows to reconstitute it. And so drawing for me in my process became, this idea of mapping, of documentation. And so, a couple of years ago as well, I started experimenting with pulling thread into the compositions. There's something about thread that speaks to this analogy of women's work, of something that is laborious, is, documentarian, can be kind of tedious, and that's also maybe sometimes not respected or not elevated. And so bringing, white thread, black thread into the surface of the drawings, kind of brings this analogy along. Something else that I found interesting with this kind of material reference is thinking about stitching into the surface as something is almost a kind of suture. So really indexing something that's medical, piercing something in order to heal it or bring it back together, and doing both. So really my work was kind of focused in on bodies, on materiality. And then, 2022 hits, and, the Dobbs decision comes out. And this is kind of a critical point for me, because I'm watching folks around me start families. I'm at an age, I'm the same age right now as my mother was when she had children. And so there's this kind of feeling of weightiness and heaviness. And so in the previous two pieces, I'm really kind of exploring from this lens of thinking about motherhood as this thing that we uphold, as a society, as a sort of like biology as destiny piece. This is what women can and should do with their bodies. But on the flip side, we don't provide the structural support for women to really make those choices and, have those choices be supported. So reading statistics like, Black women are 3 times, more likely to die from, childbirth than white women in this country, just being pretty sincerely appalled, by reading about, this sort of inability for us to really control our own destinies in this country is just sincerely frightening. So, there's a heaviness to what we're talking about, but it's so crucial and so important. And I'm honestly reeling just from hearing all of the other artists kind of talk through their work. So I definitely appreciate the time and space to talk through this material with all of you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Next, we have Mary Kosman. Mary, are you here with us? All right, we can come back to Mary if she comes back. We'll go to Rose Mellenfant next.
Hey everyone. Oh, can you hear me? Yep. Oh, wonderful. First off, thank you so much for creating this space for all these artists to share what they're doing. It's incredible. I have such a renewed appreciation for all the work and how deeply intentional and thoughtful everyone has been in their practice. So thank you for just creating this space. It's a blessing to hear from you all. And yes, the title of this work is Inseparable, Only Divisible. And divisible, the divisible force being the US government, patriarchy, fear, and the inseparable being us from each other or us from our body. You can divide us, but you cannot separate us because it's a force of nature that we are interconnected. So that's really what I was thinking about with this piece. I primarily work with nylon pantyhose. I see it kind of as this like entryway and association with women's bodies, but also the beautiful qualities of our bodies like elasticity and things like our delicate nature. We can also rip and tear, but I also see it as you know, it's something that's manufactured, and it's also something that we can associate sometimes with discomfort and also sometimes with like what our bodies should or what society tells us our bodies should be like. It's almost like airbrushing our bodies. And so sometimes I associate it with like this expectation of perfectionism with women's bodies. So my sculptures are never one prescribed meaning per se, but I like to play with these different themes in combination of each other. I feel like when we create our work as artists, it's a way of kind of trying to excavate a way to communicate about things that our words are no longer fitting for, or that we are unable to express with our words. So in this piece, I was thinking about like shifting that agency in a sense. And the objects of agency, Paul, really struck me and got my attention, because as women, we are challenged every day with our agency, and it has to be a continuous decision to take that back and reassert ourselves. And on a cognitive level, but also on a chemical level, like internally in our bodies. Like I'm coming from a place of privilege in that I have never been in a situation where I had to get an abortion. But there are so many women, and thank you all for sharing your stories. This is this choice ends up manifesting as a trauma, as pain deeply embedded in our bodies, and then going on from generation to generation. I'm really thinking about how can we free and liberate these tender things deep within our bodies that can become clogged or hardened. So with this piece in particular, like the hanging pieces from the hangers are filled with plaster, and I'm drawn to materials like plaster because it's liquid at one point, and then time and gravity, with time and gravity, it becomes solid. So it's like something that is hardened within our body. And I think about like the nylon pantyhose is kind of like, if we could imagine looking through our skin, if we all became transparent and we could investigate our bodies to be able to see through, we would see all these places that are clogged, these places that are hardened. And what would we do to shake that up, to free that? So this was honestly just a hanging sculpture, and one evening I felt the urge to step into it. So I ended up activating this sculpture with my own body in terms of this choice that, yes, things live inside of us, but we can shift the narrative. We can become those who choose to shed, right? Like shedding skin and layers, like how snakes do this act of regeneration, and we can be the source of that. So here I kind of have like clogged parts of the body in some parts, and also parts where I can try it on my body. I can wear it, like thinking about belief systems that we've like worn as almost as our own skin. And then we can take the agency to choose to shed those belief systems. So really it's all about a healing process, and a healing process not just for ourselves, but collectively across race, across gender, as a whole inseparable being.
Thank you so much, Rose. That was wonderful. And next we have Rosa Naparstek. Rosa, I think you might be muted as well, because I think I see you talking.
Hi. The name that comes up is not mine. I'm using someone else's Zoom. I'm Rosa. First of all, I'd like to thank Hera and Sonia for this wonderful directed naming of what the problems are, a clear, concise statement on your website of what the problem is and how to go about changing it. Also, I'm kind of speechless after looking at your work and listening to all of you. I'm very moved. So, a little bit about myself. First of all, these two works are about anger. And I'd like to read you the description. Whenever I'm asked to describe my work, I have a lot of trouble. And I finally thought, well, maybe I can write, a poem or just words. So I'd like to do that first and then tell you a little bit about myself. The first piece is Never Again. What's interesting is that these are about anger, but basically I'm trying to come from a whole other place in terms of how to respond to what is happening. Yet these two works are about anger and have to do with an abortion that I had. I had an abortion just about the time that Roe v. Wade was decided, which was January 24th, 1973. I was a practicing attorney, and I was also involved in the movement to legalize abortion. The night before my abortion, I had some friends over, and we were very, very excited that I would be the recipient of the new decision. However, the clinic that I went to, a makeshift clinic, they imported a doctor from New York, and they really weren't ready for it. And I had a classic, devastating, botched abortion. And it altered my life. It took a while for me to realize it altered my life. And I went back to practicing law, but something had changed, and I changed the kind of politics that I wanted to be involved in. I felt that we needed to get very, very deep into what it is that causes human beings to be cruel. The cruelty of the anti-abortion, the cruelty that has gone on, and the cruelty that exists now, and the pleasure in the cruelty that is being done by all of these laws. It's kind of inexplicable, but there was a whole article and a whole lot of talk about lynchings, the cruelty of lynchings, and they finding all these postcards and of people attending lynchings as picnics, and also couples standing there holding hands, lovingly holding hands while watching a lynching. Well, this is what's happening now. There's a great deal of delight in the more and more cruel they can become. Why? What's that all about? That's one of the things I'm very interested in. I have some thoughts. I say I'm going back and forth. I have some thoughts about that. But first, I'd like to explain the anger, and then how do we counteract, or how do we understand, or how do we deal with what it is in human beings, us included, that are capable of cruelty, and the human beings now that are engaging in such mass attacks and destruction. So the piece Never Again refers to it shall never happen again. And the poem that goes with it is hollowed petals holding the beginning of the world, mauled to death by a rake that should be tilling fertile earth. The soft background is a hat, a collapsed hat. In it is a ceramic vagina. The ceramic piece was done by a friend of mine, and of course the rake clawing at us. And the other piece is en route. And that is, I have labored hard using graceful implements of wood and steel, keeping quiet every meal with little bell to quell the fury in my heart. Unseen, unheard, as I was minced, chopped was chopped, till cut for myself, see myself awake to take power in my hand, an object of agency, en route to freedom. So that's that. In terms of what really interests me, you know, and I didn't realize till you were all talking that these were about anger and rage, and that politically for me, means having to come to a place of understanding and being able to engage with the quote other from a deeper place. Sorry. And I do my work and my exhibits in conjunction with circles of community building circles, or after the exhibit, I ask the participants to discuss what the things meant to them or what they're feeling, trying to engage them in their own experience and sharing that with each other, because I believe that allows for a deeper connection, and that deeper connection is a way to explore these issues, the abortion issue or any issue, from a place of personal experience. So I want to say one more thing, and I've gone all over the place, because what I had intended to say after listening to all of you, which moved me so much, sort of just changed what I wanted to say, and even my ability to be articulate, because I find your work and your work in the world magnificent. So I think that thing around the hatred, the whole viciousness and insanity, and is these people are looking for innocence, and the unborn is the innocence that they can pour their love and care on, versus the things in the world that are difficult. And also I feel that it has to do with feeling what would have happened if they were aborted, and the fear of that, and that they wouldn't have been there. So I think it's the shadow acting out in terms of finding where something is innocent and then being justified and getting angry. That's a little shortcut. So basically, I'm done. Thank you so much. And when this is put public, can we edit me out?
No,
Okay.
it was wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rosa. Next we'll go to Denal Poppy.
Hi, I'm also angry. I'm glad you have two different images there. I've worked in ladders for a long time, and I just had the largest show of my career, and I got to curate a show and invited a photographer to do works. And I have two veins that I've worked in, and one is I generally do found objects. I'm going to explain a little bit about myself. I was working in the first go round, and as I was staging and curating the show, I found this protest sign that was from the early 70s. And my girlfriend, I helped find an abortion for just days after, and she had a better outcome. But I'm angry, I'm curious. I didn't sleep once that orange-faced liar was elected, and I won't even say his name because I think it's like Beetlejuice. I call them evil, and now I started out, I work in fabric, and I do a lot of stuff with bras and panties. And someone walked through the gallery and go, what is all these bras and panties? I started out really friendly and soft. You know, bras and panties are soft things, but they also are binding. And another artist spoke to that. There's, you know, our feminine garments are warm and inviting, yet they're all, you know, who hasn't struggled with a bra, you know? Once I saw this coming. I never thought that this decision would happen. And we were talking about this at lunch, that we didn't handle this well. I think a lot of people never thought the Supreme Court would make this ruling, and it's just frightening. I can't imagine that our daughters have less freedom than we had, we enjoyed. And it's not a privilege. I think it's about power of men over women. That's it. We're the handmaiden's tale is all right there. And I'm so angry. If you go to Instagram, Poppy Donnell, I also have a website, but the rope is, I started with the bras, and I'm sorry, I got emotional. I started with the panties, and they were, bras and panties, really fun. And then I got angrier and angrier, and ended up, first they were tied with ribbons, and then now we're at rope. And I did one, starting a couple of years ago, it's a 12-foot high ladder that is underwear, women's, torn through, ravaged, and tied by rope. And this came about afterwards. I found this ladder on a bike ride. I found objects, and I freed it from it had been in this alley for a long time, years, ivy growing around it. So I on my bike, I balanced it. I live outside Los Angeles, riding on my bike, brought it home. And when the piece that I've submitted, I realized that the scissors weren't prominent enough. So that's the image on the left. The image on the right is the piece, an exhibit. It was a show at Orange County Center for Contemporary Art, and it's a wonderful gallery, all volunteer. And I wanted really the scissors to be more prominent, because you really don't see it on the image on the left. And it's dripping red nail polish, and it's a blood red is what I intended. And I had a lot of other large pieces, and a lot of people walked by this. And I had one group, because I spoke it was a month-long exhibit. As I spoke, I would come to whoever they had groups, walking through. It's a routine. It's a free gallery, and monthly people would come through. And one woman who is leading this foundation that was touring the gallery said, "I just wanted to tell you, everybody thought that this piece was the most powerful." And I was surprised, because the night of the opening and several times that I were there, people just walked by this. And I don't still think that the scissors are as prominent as they could be. I don't know what else I could do, but my career is, I'm in my 70s. My career is just now starting to take off. And I decided that I'm going to put it on the back burner, and I'm going to work for the election and work for to regain our rights. And I worry about our democracy. I don't know if we have a democracy anymore. So listening to all of our group, it's wonderful, because I feel more empowered. And I often feel really depressed. And even though I live in California, and I have the luxury of not facing that, one for my age, and I've had 2 abortions, I had the luxury to be able to, when I was young, there was not an issue with it. And I'm going to work out how to be the most effective that I can be in the coming years. And I thank Harry Gallery for this opportunity and this wonderful discussion. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Lynn Rosenberg.
Hi, thank you so much for including me tonight. So I wear a lot of hats, and I'm a television host, a TV show creator, and then also this visual art world of mine started during the pandemic when everything went away. And but my background is in both theater and linguistics, and so language always sort of finds its way into a lot of the work that I do. And also I'm in representation and inclusion advocacy. So this piece, I sort of chillingly just remembered tonight that I did this right after, oh my God, the greatest Supreme Court judge to ever live. Why am I blanking on her name?
Bader Ginsburg.
Thank you, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I think it's trauma. I think there's like blanking of trauma. I did this like a couple of days after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, and of course, I think a lot of us were worried that what would happen happened, and it's chilling to me to think that that was prescient that I did this piece. But so it felt to me like so much of the discourse of like, we have to talk about this, we have to talk about this, is the onus is put on folks with uteruses who have had abortions to tell their story. And there's not a ton of discourse of saying, hey, I would if I had to. I know now about myself, I would if I had to. And so it felt important to me to make a piece as we were all sort of wrestling with this really scary time that was about, you know, that I would do it. I know right now. I know that if I am faced with that, I would do it. And then I don't feel shame over that. And I think that is partially why my nude form is in this, is it's like, I'm not going to operate from a place of shame in this discourse anymore. But then behind me are words that are my demographic locators that would mean that I could get one. And so the word wealthy is there, abled, housed, citizen, heterosexual, non-immigrant, cisgender. There's a few others, a neurotypical, there's a few I'm forgetting, but so that there's all these words behind me that mean, should I be put in this position, I would be able to get it. Wealthy appears a lot. And because it was always very important to me to locate my privilege in the discourse as well. So thank you so much for including me tonight. It's been incredible to see everybody else's work. Just as other people have said, it's heartening. And I think it was Susan who said, this is what I do. This is how I can help, like making art. I got really emotional when you said that, Susan, because I just felt like it's a reminder that this is my lane, and I can actually help. We can all help in whatever small way in our lane. So it's an honor to be with you all tonight.
Thank you, Lynn. Sorry, I'm just writing down something that you said. I'm taking notes all over this page. You're all saying such wonderful things. I'm going to have to rewatch this. Next, we have Gigi Salij.
Hi, all. I think like with the rest of you, I'm honored to be in this group. I feel such a huge amount of community with you, and I'm fangirling over all of you, and especially you, Sonia. Thank you so much for organizing this. It's a spectacular thing you've done here. This piece is actually one of a series that I did last year, just before the elections, when I was agonizing and making sort of expressive art about my anxiety about the election. And then I remembered that some wise man told us not to agonize, but to organize. So I did this project, a series of posters in a sort of style of vintage political posters, all of them featuring pussy cat, to remind us that the pussy can grab you back. And so there's a series: grab them by the ballot box, grab them by the vote, grab them by the polling place, and so on. It was a little bit of activism on my part. I printed a whole bunch of them and through my Instagram account, sent them to anybody who would display it in a red or purple state or in any place where abortion rights was on the ballot. So I sent out a lot of them. And I was sort of very gratified that they found their way into the world. I think you all know, after the Dobbs decision, when everything that has to do with reproductive rights moved back to the states, that voting is going to become more important than it ever has been. I think you know that legislators, governors, and in some states, Supreme Court justices are voted on. And if we do not elect the right people, we will face declining commitment to reproductive rights. Also, in a lot of states, there are referenda about reproductive rights and constitutional amendments, state constitutional amendments. The good news is that reproductive rights are extremely popular and that people vote. Those ballot initiatives and candidates do extremely well, but the operative word is to vote. You know that women tend to be very, very good voters, but young people are really crappy voters. So this series is all about inviting people to vote, reminding them to vote, telling you all that voting cannot be taken for granted, whether in a red or a blue state. Don't forget to vote blue, and take a young person with you. So I'm going to be renewing this series. This was done for last year's election, but I'm going to be doing this again for the next year's election. A new series of Pussycat posters. And I would be very happy to be connected to any and all of you who might want to get in on this. I will send you all you want. If you promise to get them into a place where they will be seen and maybe can make a little bit of a difference. I'd love to work with Hera and getting them out into the world, if that's anything that, if you think, Sonia, that would make any sense. Because I feel like I love political art. I love emotional art and expressive art, but the operative word for all of us for the next 2 years is to vote. Thank you all for including me.
Thank you. Next we have Emily Shepard.
Hello, all my new friends. I am so grateful, Sonia. Thank you so much to you and to the Hera Gallery. I really, my art is typically sort of abstract, and the intention behind my art isn't coming from a place of really thinking so much about political issues. And yet, when the Dobbs decision came down, I was so angry and just went to my studio. I have these, this, what's it called, set of encyclopedias that I got at a yard sale at one point. They're from 1917. And I got them because they're called cumulative encyclopedias. They have blank pages in them. The idea was the publisher would send you every now and then some updates, put this into the section for B. Guess what? We developed this or whatever. And so it's kind of the old fashioned refresh your browser from the early 1900s. Get up to the date information. And so they have these beautiful blank pages. And I thought, wow, I've always been interested in reference books and how they seem to be they seem to put out this, the stance of what is truth, capital T, kind of this is what truth is, and this is what facts are, and this is how things are or should be. And so my vision when I picked up these encyclopedias so many years ago was that I would then, draw my own reference books. I would create my own set of facts or really emotional drawings inside of a book that's intentionally very objective and kind of cool, and certainly is a tool of the patriarchy. So I just, but since that time, I had those books sitting in my studio. I never did anything with them. Because what are you going to draw in a reference book? The pressure was too great. So I just finally decided it's been, hey, it's been like 20 years, time to rip these books up. And so if you go to my website, it's just emilyshepard.com, you can see a whole series of other pieces that are all in the same series. But essentially, I was just took these pieces out and just went at them with all my emotion with Sumi ink and water soluble crayons, and then the blue paper and the one on the left is that kind of transfer paper you use for marking up when you're sewing. I've got it at, again, some sort of thrift art supply funky store that sells pre-used things, or and so I think that's sort of telling, similar to some other artists that talked about thread and sewing. And essentially I was just really interested in defacing the book as a symbol of the patriarchy, and then just looking through the book makes me angry at thinking about the control that men have had over society, and especially just everything about that. And so it felt good to kind of reclaim this book and to tell a different story that was the story of really my anger and kind of outrage. I wouldn't say kind of outrage, my anger and my outrage. So it was very empowering to get into the show. And I found this evening has been really also such an incredible lesson of how important community is. And I really appreciate you bringing us together to have this conversation. I actually have to hop off when I'm done talking because I have to get to San Francisco to a rehearsal for I'm in a band. I'm a drummer in a band and we have a performance on Saturday and I gotta get to this rehearsal. But I just so appreciate the space you've made for us to connect, because it gives it reminds us about the fact that we are all connected and that we need this web of other artists to lean on and to uplift and to remind us that, you know, just one person kind of leaning against the deluge of destruction is too much. But, you know, when we're together and hold hands and kind of have this connection and our varying skills and our varying voices, it can really be a powerful thing. So I'm going to say that, and then unfortunately I'm going to have to pop off, but thank you so much and look forward to connecting with all of you guys on Instagram and whatnot. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And next we had Valerie Civilli.
Yes, hi. I had gotten blurry for a minute. I think I'm just getting tired. But I am really thankful to you, Sonia, for including me in the show. And also that you're doing this Zoom, because it's really deepening my relationship with the work. Sometimes when work is only online, you know, you get these little, you kind of scroll through it quickly or you open it up once, but it's really creating a really robust relationship with everybody's work. And it's really rich, and I'm really loving it. I too have anger, like lots of anger. And I am a woman who's had 2 children by choice, but abortions on either side. On my way into my fertility and on my way out of my fertility. And that choice has kept me autonomous as far as kept me having agency of my own body and my own life. And as anyone else, I was angry about it's unconscionable that this has been happening. But I do work, just to talk about the work itself, I do work that often uses actual physical objects. And I ink up the objects and I print them onto canvas physically. And I use, you know, I do rubbings and frottages and collages and pull them together. And I had done, this is rebuilding the closet number 2, but I did rebuilding the closet number 1 with only hangers. And then I started thinking about how we're also, it's not just about taking women's rights away. It's about stripping all of these freedoms that we're building and all of the comfort levels that we have to be who we want to be out in the world. And this afternoon, I was listening to NPR, and there was a show, I don't know if anybody heard it, there was a show about this, you know, censorship of, you know, the books in the schools. And what's happening is teachers are self-censoring. Teachers are pulling back, and they're not teaching about stuff because they're afraid to lose their jobs. We're afraid to be, teachers are starting to kind of, you know, suppress. So that we're rebuilding the closet. That's what this piece is about. It's about, the actual process of making the piece is cathartic because it's very physical. It's a lot of taking hangers and inking them up and whipping the canvas, just actually making, really releasing that energy and then coming back into it and doing it again and, kind of pulling it together and thinking like an artist, then just reacting like a pissed off woman, that kind of thing. So it's a pretty large piece, as you can see. And it's, ultimately, I just want to thank all of you because this has been really a wonderful evening meeting you all. It's really been lovely. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Mallory. And I believe this is our last but not least, we have Kathy Yancey. Kathy, are you here? Yes, here we are. You're muted, Kathy.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you can. Hello.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. My name is Kathy Yancey. I'm here in Atlanta, and the title of my work is Halo. In this painting, the year is 1975, and the subject front and center is me. Two women are lovingly tending to me as I float in a twilight sleep. The ghosts of souls called back to God enliven the walls of the medical cubicle. These ghosts of souls reach up above these walls to a heavenly host waiting to receive them into the arms of heaven and the universe. Above all of this is the dancing universe of planets, moons, comets, and stars, creating their own stuff of life. Only the blood stays on the floor. Halo depicts my experience of an abortion procedure long ago at the beginning of Roe's legality in the early 1970s as an art student, newly married. The painting calls into focus the issue of personal autonomy, the frailty and persistence of life, the layers of lingering energy as creation persists, and God's love for all that is created. The work is purposed in a way to obscure judgment about the abortion procedure and emphasize the experience, even the spiritual. When I painted the original in the late 1970s, the local art critic, who is a woman, for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in Atlanta, hated it so much and said so vehemently in print that one night, after a glass or two of wine, in a very disheartened moment, I destroyed it. This upset my young husband, John, so much he said that was our shared history, that I promised him to create another. And it took only 50 years for me to do it, but I'm proud of the result. I know this sounds like that experience deterred me from a career as an artist, but it did not. I've spent 60 years focusing on myself and all things women. Thank you, Hera and Sonia.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Wow. I don't know about everyone else, but I have been on a roller coaster of some emotions on this talk for sure. There was one moment I thought I was going to have to turn my screen off. I was tearing up a little bit, and another, I know we've had a few giggles and a few sparks of rage for sure. So I'd like to open up to a Q&A. I have 1,000 things to say, and it seems like we all do as well.
Sonia, can I speak?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, my piece in the show is a very floral ceramic piece with a coat hanger. We all of us in our coat hangers. I was creating work for an exhibition at the University of South Carolina that I had last fall when Roe V. Wade dropped. I went to my bed, cried for a day, went into the studio and started making pieces. To be honest, I was a little nervous about putting these pieces even though it's at a university, it's in the South, in a red state, and I was prepared to take all sorts of crap for it, but I luckily didn't get it. I had a lot of support. That was my first comment. And also, you guys are freaking great. I'm just saying, all of you guys are great. These pieces are astonishing. The only other thing I wanted to talk about was that I've, as with most of you, I've gone insane with what's going on, and I've created an exhibition that will be held at the University of Toledo next 2024 in October, November, just prior to the general election. And I've asked 16 women artists to create a piece that represents why they vote, right? So it could be environmentalism, it could be Roe v. Wade, it could be gerrymandering, could be anything. And I feel like, you know, and I can't remember who said it, but getting the young people in and the power they have, that these college kids that just walk up and they, oh, it's too hard, I don't know where I vote. Well, you know what? I'm going to have QR codes in the exhibition that they can click on and just type in their address, and it tells them exactly where their polling place is. Like someone else said, I want to make it easy for these people, particularly for these young people. Now, the University of Toledo is attached to the Toledo Museum of Art. They're attached physically. And at this point, we've got a panel, speaking panel ready to go, I think. The League of Women Voters is supporting us, and the ACLU is supporting us. And, you know, gosh, I could use any brainstorming from all you brilliant women. I can leave my email with the gallery, but I wanted to get that information out because we're still fine tuning it, and we've got a year, and so any help I can get, that would be great. So thank you.
Thanks, Julie. I had a question for Danelle. Go back to your work. When we were going through pieces and making the show, I can see that it's titled "Give Me the Scissors," and it really took me a long time to find the scissors. And I thought that maybe there weren't scissors in it at one point. And I was like, oh, how interesting. Like the title is sort of speaking back to us, saying, give me the scissors to like take all these ropes off. I didn't even know the scissors were inside. So I thought it was really interesting that you were speaking how to make them more visible. And maybe that is, I don't know, maybe should they be or should they not be? I'm not sure.
What was I've just had all my work photographed last summer, and I realized it's funny when you, I'm used to having physical exhibits, and I also do these doll houses that are 3D, and they're, if I do found objects in old doll houses, and they're hit by fire and hurricanes and whatnot, and it's so different to have a visual image compared to the 3D image. And even in a 3D image, being physically next to the piece, the scissors are hard to find, which I kind of like that mystery of it, but people walk by the piece. I took a seminar and they said you have 22 seconds to grab somebody's attention. So I really wanted to grab the attention, and I was fearful in that I might be edited in the gallery, and this gallery gave me such a good home that I thought, well, people are gonna, oh God, you can't have scissors in the gallery. Well, they've just cut off my rights. I think I can't have scissors in a gallery, and they really supported me. So I'm glad that you addressed that, the mystery. And I think the second piece is more successful with the dripping blood.
Mm.
But thanks. And you know what? This has been really energizing for me. I'm at the point of tears. I think when we're alone, that you have pent up anger that you share with your friends, but the community of artists, the community of women that are like-minded and in different stages of life is really moving and very, very supportive. And thanks.
Thank you. I feel like I wish we were all in person. I feel like we're all sitting in each other's living room. It's been such an intimate conversation. So thank you all. I had a question for, I feel like, does someone else have a question? I can wait. It was actually for Lynn Rosenberg, where the screen just landed. But another thing I noticed in this is you were talking too about the words behind your piece, the words written there are words that gave you a choice, or are giving you a choice and give you that privilege to have a choice. But they're also, when I look at these words, are words that describe someone who gets to take away that choice. So it's this really interesting dichotomy of that privilege.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal point. I mean, I think a lot about that, you know, wealthy white ladies in certain states are a part of the huge reason why these rights were taken away for people who don't look like me. And yeah, that's, I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right. That's a great point. And that I occupy that location, and what does that mean I need to continue to do to fight? That's great. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? You can just unmute yourself.
Can I just make a suggestion?
Mhm.
In the same way that Hera had this lovely show called The Objects of Agency, you might want to consider a vote show next year with 2024 coming up. And artists respond to the need to vote. Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great suggestion. Thank you. We'll definitely be doing something similar to this next year. So I will, it is about just after 8:30. Been a long, little over an hour and a half together. I will have this video on our website tomorrow for you to share. And I will also save the chat and send that to the artist in the show or the participating artists in the talk tonight. I know we were sharing each other's Instagram and everything. So in your handles, I'll send that out to everyone so you don't miss anything.
Thank you. It's a great experience.
Just great. Thank you so much for bringing us together. I would love to continue this community in whatever way people find convenient or useful. It would be, I find it very energizing and really thrilling to be with all of you.
Yeah, serious kudos to everyone on here. I was raving about these kinds of things to people that are not connecting with me. So I'm so glad to be here tonight. Thank you, everyone.